Uh,
I
Hello
love
and
that song.
welcome to Media Musings, the first episode of Marvel Month, which this year is going to be in May. Next year is going to be in March.
To make it, to make it the Merry Marvel Marching Society.
Yeah.
See what I did there?
Yes.
And it's officially the day of my birth for 15 minutes here in Australia.
Wow.
Anyway, so
Happy birthday!
Yeah. Happy birthday,
Thank you.
Sammy!
And
good month for Marvel.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And hello to Never Again and whoever's lurking in the chat or might be watching in the future. Now, originally, the plan was to start with Black Panther. Well, the original plan was to do Into the Spider-Verse and then start the month off with Black Panther. But given to issues beyond our control, the person who suggested Black Panther, the co-host who suggested Black Panther as a topic, is unable to make it. So we did a last-minute switch. And instead, we're starting out the month with arguably the movie that started off the MCU. Yes, there is an argument that can be made for Iron Man, but really the Avengers is what made the is what brought all the disparate franchises into.
I mean, obviously, yes, you're gonna have to say technically, Iron Man, the Incredible Hulk. There's a couple of Iron Man movies before this, and then the Incredible Hulk movie 4 and whatever, and they were all leading to this.
Yeah.
But this is kind of really this is, like I said, this was almost a bit of a crescendo. This to the Marvel films that had come out already at the time was this film, and this is my opinion. Sometimes on this show, I think you'll agree, Ring. We probably a lot of the times we get into like the deeper meanings behind stuff or whatever.
Yeah.
But let's be honest, this film's just good popcorn fun.
Yeah,
it's good old fashioned popcorn.
Though there are bits to to get into.
Yeah.
And what? Oh, and I see we have Dog in the chat.
Hi, Dog.
And like what the Avengers does really great is it brings everything. It does what it's supposed to do. It brings everything together. Like we get Black Widow introduced in probably the best way. We could get her introduced.
I mean, I suppose you could say. I mean, you obviously technically yes. I know. She was a character in Iron Man. She was in Iron Man 2. Yes, we are aware of that. Same thing with Hawkeye having a brief little cameo in 4. But I think this is where I think we first really got a look at Black Widow properly as a character in the MCU. Is this film?
And that's the thing is the Avengers, like the way the movie is structured, it's not like you have to see. It's not like you have had to see all the other Phase 1 movies.
No.
I mean, it helps, because there is, extra context. But, for those who hadn't seen all the movies before, or for those who had forgotten the other movies, it does, as the movie starts, it gives you kind of a brief introduction. And also quick quick fires through like all the interactions to set up the inter-character dynamics.
Mm. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's as I said, I think it definitely, yes, it helps to have seen the films that preceded it, like the first Iron Man films, the Captain America film.
Yeah.
I mean, I'd say probably the Captain America and Thor films might, of the two, possibly have a bearing on the plot on this.
Yeah.
Which, to kind of explain, obviously, things like the Tesseract and, and why Loki's come here and all that sort of stuff.
Because, the MacGuffin is lifted from Captain America, and the antagonist is lifted from Thor.
Yeah. I've got to say, I think this day, he was a great antagonist in Thor, but I think in this movie, you just saw how absolutely brilliant Loki is in the MCU in this film. He was good in Thor, but this was just he was absolutely just a perfect villain for this.
Yeah, and the Avengers cemented Loki as the best MCU villain up until like late phase 2, early phase 3. Up until phase 3. Where we got, Killmonger. And I mean, arguably you could say Thanos was there the entire time, but he wasn't, he was in the background the entire time.
Yeah. And I will say, obviously, we'll get to it, but obviously, this film is where Thanos is first teased.
Yeah,
and we'll get there. That's much later on.
But so it opens, explaining the evil plan that the aliens are going to bring, or that. Loki is going to bring an army of aliens with, to attack Earth with the Tesseract. And, lift the old, tried and true trope of the alien army underestimates humanity.
Yeah, it absolutely. That's a kind of a thing with this. Obviously, I think at the beginning, Loki is he talks to a character that's called the Other, which I think is. I think the Other is an original MCU character. That. But and then obviously we get to. So he promises Loki an army in which he can take over the Earth.
Yeah. And
then obviously we get to the next thing would be, I think, it's when Loki appears and in the scene, obviously, with like Nick Fury and so on.
Yep. And brainwashes Hawkeye and a bunch of field agents, and arguably as much as the Avengers belongs to any singular character, which it doesn't, it's an ensemble movie. It's really like it's really Nick Fury and Hawkeye's and Black Widow's movie, because them being the only ones, the only major players that haven't had a movie to themselves, is those tend to get the most character development.
Yeah.
Exception, with the exception of Mark Ruffalo's Bruce Banner, but we don't talk about the MCU Hulk movie.
It's that is kind of one of those things in my head canon. I don't really want that to be part of the MCU. And I mean, I've often had this theory about the Hulk as a character. The Hulk is better as it served as a character, being in a kind of support role in these films rather than the star. And I think, we saw obviously the misfire with the Ang Lee movie, and then another misfire with the quite obviously the MCU with Ed Norton. But I will say this: Mark Ruffalo's Banner is awesome. And that's not a knock on Eric Banner or Ed Norton, but Mark Ruffalo is the perfect Bruce Banner to me.
But we're kind of getting ahead of ourselves.
Yeah.
So, Nick Fury realizes that something big's going down, and they need to, assemble the Avengers. And, we cut to the introduction of, Black Widow, where she's tied up in some warehouse, and she has gotten some Russian oligarch / gangster or whatever monologuing to her.
Yeah.
Basically a scene that could have been straight out of James Bond.
Absolutely, yeah. I know this is definitely the thing that James Bond is a fucking amateur compared to Black Widow. We're going to say this now. It's a bit like, do you remember when we did the John Wick films? I sent you the meme of James Bond saying, "Who's my next target?" And then underneath it's John Wick says excommunicado, and James Bond says, "Fuck that, I quit." That's you kind of get that feeling. Would it be the same with they sent him after Black Widow?
And it's shot like she's she's the one who was captured and is being interrogated. Yes, she was working, but for someone who's first watching the movie, it appears that she's tied up.
Yeah. You that's the initial impression you get, that she's been captured, being interrogated, tied up, and then you get the whole thing of the phone call.
Yeah.
And they're like, it's for you. And it's kind of like, hey, Agent Romanoff, need you back here. We got to go to work, kind of thing. And it's like, okay, and then immediately, obviously, breaks free of her, breaks free.
Yeah, she says,
"Get out of these guys."
Yeah, she says, "I'm working." That he's telling me everything.
Yeah.
And then she's like, okay. She breaks out, and it's like, and Coulson tells her that he's gonna need big guns, and she says, Stark doesn't trust me, and then he says, no, the big guns, and he says, I'll get Stark, you're getting Banner, and then you see this look of pure fear. Like, the only time her exterior cracks, in this entire scene. And so for those of you, for those people who don't read comics, or, it tells the casual audience who hasn't really watched any of the MCU movies yet, and for the casual audience that doesn't really know much about comics, that Banner is something scary. Because she, she was, keeping everything in control under the, and, completely in control under the threat of torture. But Banner scares her.
Yeah. And again, it's possibly one of the brilliances of this portrayal and what we go to.
Yeah.
Again, if you know nothing about comic books whatsoever, and then you see the scene with her and Dr. Banner, and you're like, what is scary about this guy? If you know nothing about comics and do not know what the Hulk is, you're kind of like you're initially, why is this guy scary? That I think that was very well done. Because that's the thing I think about Mark Ruffalo's Banner compared to the other ones that have been done in cinema. That's that his portrayal of Banner is like very, so unthreatening.
Very mild-mannered and unassuming.
Yeah.
Except for brief flashes where, he's just about to lose control. Or when he's acting like he's about to lose control. Because, we have this back and forth with Banner and Natasha in Calcutta.
Sorry, I'm just curious whether you think... so you think Ruffalo was a better Banner? Do you think Banner was a better Hulk?
Yeah, I don't know. I am partial.
Really?
I'm too partial to the MCU Hulk. I got to admit, I'm a little biased on that. But
and when you're talking about the modern Hulk movies,
it's CGI.
Well, I mean, with the exception of, say, Thor Ragnarok, the Hulk is, the Hulk. I mean, the Hulk gets a little bit of characterization in the at the end of the Avengers, but for the most part, the Hulk's just there to smash. And that's pretty much all of the modern Hulk stuff.
Yeah. I mean, bear in mind, my first exposure to that character was not through comics, but it was through the old TV series, which was on a rerun when I was a kid, with Bill Bixby and Lou Ferrigno as the Hulk. And I ignorantly didn't understand. And I'll just take a slight detour on this, because this is one of those real stupid, should we just say stupid things that people in TV come up with it sometimes. If you ever watch the old Incredible Hulk TV series, the character's name is David Banner, not Bruce Banner. And does anyone want to know what the reasoning behind that was?
Yeah.
They had this idea that the name Bruce was gay. And I mean, even Stan Lee, who was a consultant on this, was like, what? What do you? I mean, so they kind of they made this little concession to Stan Lee that they would call him David Bruce Banner, like Bruce would be his middle name. But that's some of the just stupid thinking of certain TV people at the time.
Hold on, because that made me think of something that Oh, okay. Never mind. I thought actually, fun fact. is in the comics. Bruce Banner. Bruce is actually Dr. Banner's middle name. But it's Robert Bruce Banner.
Yeah.
See, I had to just check that because I thought in the comics they did the opposite, where it was Bruce David Banner.
Yeah. Well, I think obviously, as you know, this is everybody knows this is the Stan Lee effect there of how they would all have the surnames would all start with the same letter as the first. You had the Peter Parker, Matt Murdock, Bruce Banner, Robbie Robertson, J. Jonah. The list goes on.
Well, if I remember right, Stan Lee did that to in order to keep the character straight in his head.
Yeah. He did say it helped him memorize things. I think it was partially to do with his memory. I think that.
Yeah. But anyways, and there is that brief.
Back in 2 minutes, Ring. Sorry.
Yeah. Okay. So there is that brief, scene, split second in the Calcutta where it looks like Banner's going to lose, his, control of himself. But it turns out he was just testing Natasha to see what she'd do. And sorry, my brain is not quite doing the brain thing. But like the majority of the movie is just getting the characters introduced to the audience and then introduced to and introduced to each other and breezing through the dynamics of, of the rules of how things interact, both on a character and on a superpower level. And I think J. Jonah Jameson Jr. wins the title of the longest alliterated name.
What's the first J?
Let's see. So J. Jonah Jameson's full name is John Jonah Jameson.
Junior. You gotta say
yeah, his son is.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, his son is, J. Jonah Jameson Jr. Also, if we're talking about perfect casting, what's his name? Yeah, J.K. Simmons is he didn't appear in the MCU until Far From Home, but J.K. Simmons in Sam Raimi's Spider-Man trilogy is probably the first example of the perfect casting of an actor in a superhero movie.
Interesting.
Or at least in my opinion.
I'll have to have a rewatch. I should have rewatched the Avengers. for this episode, but I was kind of expecting Black Panther.
Yeah, so was I. Everyone was until, last minute change because of life. But, and the
so
thing
you're actually
is,
reminding me of a lot of stuff that I'd forgotten. So I don't have a great deal to offer, unfortunately.
Oh, yeah, I literally just finished watching it. But, and the thing is, like, the plot of the movie, the conflict of the movie isn't really the Avengers versus Loki. It's, will the Avengers come together as a team? Which kind of meshes with the meta plot of will the Avengers work? So it meshes the plot, the plot conflict of will the Avengers work as a team with the meta plot conflict of will the Avengers work as a movie? Because this is the first of its kind, where you took a bunch of characters, who already had, solo movies, and put them together in in an ensemble movie where you're stitching, bits of, where you're stitching franchises into like a Voltron of franchises.
So I'm just trying to quickly rack my brain, and I can only think of versus. So this person versus that person, or crossovers.
Yeah,
is what I'm thinking of. But you're right. I can't think of any instance.
Yeah, and I mean, in like with monster movies, you'd have like Godzilla versus King Kong, or the Mummy versus Dracula. But those, so arguably, like in the 50s and 40s into the 60s, you had like the Universal monsters, where they'd cross over into each other's movies for like a brief fight, or for a fight movie, or Freddy versus Jason, Alien versus Predator, that kind of stuff. But yeah, this is like the first time where you've taken a bunch of different characters from who already had their own movies and tried to build a franchise off of it. And so and yes, for those of you who have watched Movie Bob's really that good episode on the Avengers, I am 100% stealing this from that. This reading where the meta plot of the movie and the plot of the movie, the main conflict of the movie, and the meta plot of the movie, where will the Avengers work, meshes together and gets the audience to root for the movie to be a success by wanting through the contrivances of the plot of the movie.
In a way, in a certain way, though, this movie does follow some of the tropes of the versus crossover things that have been done in comics. To a certain degree, because there is initially, I suppose, the conflict between, and we'll get to it, that, they do have a couple of fights with one another first. And we'll obviously, which is obviously a bit of a trope whenever you've done crossover franchises, when Like, I've got one here. Okay, this is a Image and DC crossover here. It's Spawn versus Batman. So you got the it's the whole sort of thing of which is the kind of thing where the two heroes have a bit of a misunderstanding or whatever, and have a fight with one another, but eventually kind of come together against to fight a common foe.
And the reason why that is a trope in comics, especially in comics, is that it is a very useful narrative device, because the way comics, comic books franchises were, originally, is kind of like how the MCU was, where every book had its own, narrative, where you have every movie franchise with its own overarching narrative. So you'll have like followers of Spider-Man, the Spider-Man book, and then the followers of the Daredevil book. And then if, when there's a crossover issue, you had to tell the Daredevil followers what Spider-Man can do, and the Spider-Man followers what Daredevil can do. So that initial fight scene basically, one, gives the readers a bit of action, and two, it gives the readers a shorthand to understand how the characters that they don't necessarily follow work.
Yeah. And I also say, especially when you've had different comic books companies cross over as well.
Yeah.
It's almost a certain thing of, we can't let our character appear too weak kind of thing as well.
Yeah.
Obviously, there was a crossover that DC did with Marvel where they had a Spider-Man versus Superman thing. And to be fair, they had to do a bit with the plot there to actually make Spider-Man a bit of a credible threat to Superman. I think Kryptonite may have been involved or something, but to give Spider-Man, because if you really want to weigh it up, Spider-Man does not really have a fighting chance against Superman, to be in all honesty.
But I will be back momentarily.
Okay, so where are we the plot right now then? We've got, just remind me where we are with the plot again here, Sammy. We got to obviously they recruited Banner, and then and Coulson tries to get Tony Stark on board. And obviously, Nick Fury approaches Captain America with this to get him on board. And Captain America, I think, he's probably one of the easier ones to recruit in this, I think. But Tony Stark doesn't initially get on board, I think, but he will do. So the plot sort of moves to Stuttgart, Germany.
Yeah.
Where Barton instills iridium needed to stabilize the Tesseract's power.
Yeah.
Whilst Loki's causing a distraction.
Now the scene in Stuttgart actually has some things that we can dig into thematically. First is the setup in the in the museum where an altar, this unveiling party is being held for this, exhibit of an altar of some sort. And Loki, because Clint needs, the eye for the, an image of the eye for the retinal scan. Loki takes the curator, puts him on the altar before using a device to like copy the eye. But like almost in a way sacrifices the curator to himself. Yeah, you could arguably say.
Yeah. Yeah, you could definitely read that into that, definitely.
Yeah.
And obviously, I think I know where you might have be going with this in a bit. Loki, obviously, they get what they're looking for, and then Loki is kind of goes outside to really just to terrorize the people out there.
Yeah.
And get them to kneel before him. And then there's the one guy, the old guy.
Yeah, the old guy who is definitely, portrayed as old enough to have lived through World War II.
Yeah, so it's never really said whether he's a Holocaust survivor or anything like that, but I suppose there might be an implication there, and the whole thing of like there's I can't remember the precise line, and you've watched this today, so you'll probably know the line better. But he said, it said something like, that, Loki says, there is nobody like me, and the guy says something like, there are always men like you.
Yeah, Loki says like, there is no man like me, and the old man replies with, there are always men like you. And then Loki tells the crowd to look at your elder, and and see what becomes of him.
Yeah,
and he shoots the beam from his scepter, and it's intercepted by Captain America.
Yeah. And especially with the whole thing of like, look at your elder there. Well, Captain America is an elder technically.
Yeah.
So.
And then we get the line from Captain America where he says, "Last time I was in Germany, and there was a man standing above the rest of the populace. We didn't agree."
Yeah. So there's obviously a lot of World War II and Third Reich references there. In that scene.
Oh, sorry. I've got to mention this while I'm thinking of it.
Yeah.
So there's a meme going around. It might be a TikTok video or something of a dad saying to a grandfather who's sitting there looking at a crying child. The dad's going, "What's this?" He wanted what's that blocky video game? Minecraft. He wanted Minecraft, Granddad, not Mein Kampf. His granddad had bought and it looks legit. Like the grandfather's genuinely shocked.
Dear.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This poor little kid, he's like 7. And he was all excited because he thought he was finally getting Minecraft. He probably had no clue what the book was. He was just disappointed he got the book, but
now the thing is, like, it's hard to view, like, this is like a pretty difficult episode to do because it's hard to view the Avengers in a vacuum.
Yeah.
It's damn near impossible, especially with the way, with the way Cap is portrayed in the Avengers. Because in the Avengers, they really play up the man at a time, old-fashioned American spirit, which kind of comes crashing down, in Winter Soldier. And the later Captain America, installments of the Captain America franchise, where they take the patriotic symbol and go very subversive with the narrative to make it more of a political commentary on how America is.
Yeah.
So that was a little bit jarring. But the thing is, even though how Steve Rogers is treated is jarring, Steve Rogers is still Steve Rogers. Like,
yeah,
like the character like is portrayed the same. It's just how the treatment is, or how the story treats the character.
And obviously, we'll get to it in a minute. But one of my favorite little things in this film was when he says something to Nick Fury along the lines of, "I don't think there's anything that would shock me anymore." And Nick Fury says, "Bet you $10 you're wrong." And then there's the scene when he gets onto the helicarrier. So you've got this giant aircraft carrier.
Well, actually,
and he just hands Nick Fury $10.
Yeah, we actually skipped that.
I know that's later on, but
no, it's earlier.
Oh, yes, it was. Yeah. But that was one of my favorite little little things in that. But so at the end of this conflict, so when they're getting into this conflict in Germany, and of course, all of a sudden, out of nowhere, Iron Man comes flying in to kind of during the middle of this fight, and kind of becomes, I suppose, the difference maker where Loki surrenders effectively. And is taken on board the Quinjet in chains, and then all of a sudden there's the whole like the bit of thunder or whatever, and that another one of my great, and this is one of the things, is so many great quotes in this movie. And the whole thing, if you're not scared of a little thunder, I don't really like what follows it.
And then there's that thump on the Quinjet.
Yeah.
And this is where we get our first, our first comic book, hero versus hero fight of the movie.
Hero versus hero, misunderstanding between the good guys, which is a the classic trope of versus things in comics. The heroes have a misunderstanding that leads to them having a fight, because you got to bear in mind, for reference here, these guys, Captain America, Iron Man, they don't know who the hell Thor is.
Yeah,
and he doesn't know who they are.
Yeah,
so,
and once again, leaning hard into the Captain America as an old school, good old boy, American ideal paragon. Iron Man, jumps out of the Quinjet to go chase after Thor, and Cap grabs a parachute, and the SHIELD agent says, "You better sit this one out. That guy, these Asgardians are basically gods." And then, of course, leaning into the Captain, the good old 1940s.
Yeah, there's only one God, man. Yeah,
and he doesn't dress like that.
Yeah. Which, okay. As I'm assuming, probably a lot of the people watching this are atheists. Yeah, we're probably okay. We'll let that. I will let that one slide because of what comes later in the film.
Yeah,
which we'll get to. But
yeah,
so I'll let that. There was only one God slides because.
Well,
I think I'll just say I'm just going to tease this now. If you are an atheist, you've never seen this film. There's a line in this film that is you are just going to love, but we're going to get there.
Yeah. Though that reminds me of the Avengers meme, where it's Captain America is met two gods, still a Christian. Iron Man met two gods, still an atheist. The Hulk met two gods, beat up both.
Yeah, a man after my own heart.
Yeah. But we get a brief fight of Iron Man facing up against Thor, where they're somewhat kind of easily matched as long as Iron Man stays out of the way of the hammer.
Yeah, and then Iron Man's pretty damn screwed if he gets hit with Mjolnir, So and then obviously Cap is coming in via parachute, which is taking a little bit of time.
And he briefly gets them to stop. And he's like, "Hey, we're on the same side. We both, want to get the Tesseract from Loki." And
Tusk knows what I was referring to, by the way. He's put it in the chat.
And Thor's like, well, no, Thor says we're both on the same side. We want to stop Loki. Cap says, "Prove it, put down the hammer." And then Thor puts down the hammer. And we see what happens when an unstoppable force meets a vibranium shield.
Yeah. Yeah, it was but I mean, and I have to admit, the first time I watched this, because we obviously get to the point where they do obviously call their truce. And obviously we'll get to this as a while, but my big thing at this stage, the first time I watched this was, why didn't Loki use this opportunity to get away?
Yeah.
And that was my first, which was my first, why is he, he could have easily gotten away during this time. He didn't, which we'll obviously get to, but that was definitely a question I had at the time when I first watched this, because I was like, he's had plenty of time to get away here.
Yeah. And so they get back to the helicarrier, and we have a couple scenes where they're where we have a couple where we have the protagonists interrogating Loki.
Yeah. The scene with Nick Fury and Loki is one of my favorites of this film. I do enjoy that. Yeah. And then the whole there's the more dramatic thing of how desperate are you, and he said, look, you basically invaded my world. In fact, it says, you've made me a very desperate man. You might not be glad that you did. And then the little closing line with Loki says, I can't remember the quote, but he says something about real power. And Nick Fury's like, well, let me know if Real Power wants a magazine or something.
Yeah.
And walks. And this is one of the things, we haven't really touched on this yet,
Yeah.
One of the threads and one of the things that is, I think is good. One of the big charm about the MCU is the humor in the MCU.
Yeah.
That's one of the most charming things about the Marvel movies to me. Is the kind of humor and dialogue.
Yeah. Well, and there is one, like, aside from the whole meta plot theme, one of the themes explored in the Avengers movie is what really is power and how should power be wielded.
Yeah.
You know, because we've got, Nick Fury with his, with all the everything S.H.I.E.L.D. has to offer under his control.
Mm.
And then, we have the Council.
Mm.
And also, we have Loki, who's, you think you have power, you're just human. And then we have, the Avengers themselves, with, the exception of Natasha and Clint, have actual, powers, though, Tony's are self-built.
Yeah, Tony's are, yeah. So they got them in. So they're in the helicarrier now. They got Loki in prison, and they I suppose a bit of a. This is where we get to this. There is a bit of a division about how to approach Loki, and the fact that S.H.I.E.L.D.'s been planning to harness the power of the Tesseract to develop weapons.
Yeah. But the thing is, Loki isn't necessarily causing the schisms, but he is certainly amplifying them with his scepter. Mm. And it doesn't tell us this, it shows us this very well. Because there's this scene where everyone's arguing in the room with the scepter, and we get a Dutch tilt that focuses in on the scepter in center with the team in the background fighting. Showing that the plan was to let, Nick Fury wanted to bring the Avengers together. Loki wanted them to destroy each other.
Mm.
Or how Banner put it, we're not a team, we're a chemical reaction.
Yeah. And so they're having this argument, and as they're having this argument, obviously Hawkeye, Clint, and some of the other people that Loki's possessed and attack the helicarrier.
Let's put a pin in that right now.
Yeah.
Because there's another great interrogation scene with Loki.
Romanoff. Yeah.
Yeah, Loki and Romanoff. Where Natasha basically does the thing she did at the beginning of the movie with Loki.
Yeah. Because you really think, because it was good, because you really thought that Loki had gotten to her.
Yeah.
You really look. I watched that, and then when it was that whole thing of that's your play, is to unleash the Hulk.
Well, yeah. So, she breaks down and calls him a monster.
Yeah.
And Loki smiles and says, "You brought the monster." And she's like, "Oh, that's all I needed. Thanks."
Yeah,
he plans to unleash the Hulk.
Yeah. That was I mean, because it was a that was a good scene, because it was the first time, or at least you thought, that Black Widow had been gotten to because of her part, and obviously, her, because of her past, which obviously does haunt her.
Yeah,
that is brought up, and that is brought up because, and like as you said, because of like the relationship between her and Hawkeye, which is very just a real tough is. Which, I suppose, initially when you start watching this, you think it's a romantic thing, but it's very much not, and it's just a really tight friendship.
Yeah.
But and because she's she's really, she wants to get Hawkeye out from under Loki's control.
And part of the argument now all this argument between the team not only helps escalate the tension about the whole will they actually become a team of the plot, question of the main conflict of the plot. But it also gives us really good insight to their, each character's specific, like what they're struggling with, and we learn that Banner's is a bit dark.
Yeah.
Because when Banner learns about how the helicarrier had a containment cell for the Hulk to possibly, kill him if he couldn't, if he got too out of control. It's like, you can't. I tried. And that is actually probably like one of the darkest lines I've seen out of the MCU.
Wow,
and,
yeah. Because it's meant, I think it was meant, I forget which film it was mentioned in. It may have been the Incredible Hulk movie. I'm not sure, or whether it was one of the Avengers movies. But where Banner mentions that he tried to put a bullet.
Yeah,
he tried to shoot himself.
It's in the Avengers.
It's in the Avengers, and the other guy spat it out.
Yeah.
So,
that's why I put the trigger warning up.
Yeah, it is one of the darker. And I think, like I said, if you're just coming into this and you have no concept of the comics or who the Hulk is or anything, this is pretty. I mean, this is because, and I think, and I'd even say, even if you're familiar with the old TV series, okay, or Lou Ferrigno and whatever, what that does not get across what the Hulk is, this absolute force of nature.
Yeah.
I mean, pretty much. You think of all the characters in comics whatsoever. There's very few that are going to win a straight up fight with the Hulk.
Yeah. Well, and the thing is, the reason I brought that up is because the MCU gets a lot of slack for being the jokey fun franchise.
Yeah.
But that short little monologue from Bruce Banner talking about how he hit a really low point in his life and he tried to end it. Well, and another dialogue between Natasha and Clint after she rescues him. Like the Avengers is like mostly a mostly a popcorn blockbuster flick, but it is not afraid to get serious and to get dark. but it's mixed in with like a bunch of, bombastic fight scenes and, and pyrotechnics. So it kind of gets lost on you. But
and I think in a way that it slips the dark stuff in there, where because obviously I know I'm kind of partial to dark stuff. I think one of the things with especially the early days of the DC universe with Zack Snyder, it almost batters you over the head with how dark it is, to the point of this is like the dark stuff is sort of just slipped in here.
Yeah, but when you're just like watching, like, when I went back and watched it this morning, like those scenes like smacked me upside the head. It was like, wow, this is dark, especially when, considering how the MCU is usually the light fluffy franchise.
I was just saying, Tusk was saying in the chat that he actually met Lou Ferrigno in an elevator one time.
Yeah.
I could believe it. He is absolutely huge.
Yeah. And so, then, Hulk or Hawkeye attacks the helicarrier. And, we have that scene with Natasha and Banner where Natasha's, trapped under the pipe and Banner loses control. And there's something absolutely great about this scene. It's not necessarily any of the dialogue, because it's, Natasha just trying to get Banner back in control and trying to calm him down. And that split second where she nods the other SHIELD people away. But the thing is, after Banner starts turning, the rest of that scene is shot, the rest of that sequence is shot like a horror movie.
Yeah.
Where, it's the tight corridors, you don't actually see the Hulk, and a lot of close-ups of Natasha's face. Really selling that the Hulk is a monster.
Yeah. I mean, as I said, this is what we've gone back to a few times on this. It's to give you anyone who has not read a comic book or seen anything before seeing this will get what's going on here.
Yeah. It's using the language of film to communicate how scary the Hulk is.
Yeah.
And in fact, we don't actually see the Hulk until Thor gets involved. And then we have a fight scene with Thor and the Hulk where it's kind of equally matched, but the Hulk kind of kicks Thor's ass.
Yeah. I mean, it's obviously there's the thing for the Hulk trying to pick up the hammer and is not having any success. So Thor gets a couple of shots in on him, but
yeah.
If you're going to talk about Hulk and Thor, I was going to wait till the end to ask this, but with a one-word answer, Hulk v Superman, who would win?
I'm going with the Hulk, honestly.
I'm going with Superman.
Wow. Both ways.
Well,
yeah, I can't decide.
Well, so here's the way I see it. I'm assuming we're talking classic Hulk. We're talking Savage Hulk here. So the thing is, whenever anyone with super strength actually gives the Hulk any amount of trouble, It's because they're fighting smarter than the Hulk. You know, Superman has that. Superman also has the mobility.
He also has laser vision, which
So Superman
can work at a distance.
Superman for the like in a fight between the Hulk and Superman, like assuming it's not in the middle of a town, in which case I'll have to give it to the Hulk because Superman will get into melee to keep people safe. Like, assuming it's like out in the wilderness or somewhere where, you know, innocent civilians aren't in harm's way, Superman will just kite the Hulk.
I mean, but one of the things with the Hulk is that he just gets more powerful the more angry he gets. Yeah. I mean, to be honest, it is almost, you know, the irresistible force and the immovable object meeting there.
So basically the way I see it is Superman would kite the Hulk until he could get a good angle, then, you know, swoop in, toss the Hulk into space, and then we have Planet Hulk. Now if we're talking in a populated area, then I'd give it to the Hulk because that'd be essentially the death of Superman all over again, where, you know, Doomsday beats Superman. And I will be right back. So
okay, so let's
helicarrier scene.
Helicarrier, and we got the fight going on, obviously, between the Hulk and Thor at this point. But there's obviously the thing of the damaged engine in the helicarrier, and Captain America and Iron Man, I think for the first time possibly, kind of start to work together a little bit to get this thing going so that the carrier can stay airborne. Loki escapes, and at one point I'll say this, he kills a guy. Although, for those who are familiar with the Marvel cinematic universe, we know that Agent Phil Coulson will be resurrected for the series Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., which I'm in the process of watching right now. But he kills Agent Coulson.
Yeah.
In universe resurrected?
In the MCU, Phil Coulson has been resurrected after that film, just so people know. There's a series called Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., and Phil Coulson is the main character, and it is set that he was resurrected after the events of Avengers.
Which some people say kind of kills the impact, but honestly, in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., he deals with like he spends a lot of time dealing with the PTSD of having been dead.
Yeah. And the fact that in the way that he's back with S.H.I.E.L.D., he's kind of kept quiet that he's alive, because his death, in effect, is kind of a thing that, in a way, that unites the Avengers, or at least Nick Fury uses it to unite them properly. And Dog, I just saw your question. No, I've not watched WandaVision.
Yeah.
So post-death PTSD is a pretty common trope, I have to say. And I've never understood it. It implies, well, I guess they're going from the point of view that there was something on the other side, but that has to be implied.
Well, to give,
just the knowledge that you were dead.
It's a bit more. It's a bit of a weird. Enough. It's a bit of a weird thing as well that they tried to give Coulson in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. They give Coulson a bit of a false memory of them sending him to Tahiti for convalescence.
It's a hell of a place.
Yeah, it's a magical place.
Yeah.
And then he finds out that he was never sent to Tahiti for convalescence, but whilst he thought he was in Tahiti, he was on a table somewhere with his brain being surgically worked on, and it's So it's a bit of a whole. It's a whole sidetrack, to be honest.
Honestly, I post-death, PTSD isn't arguably an indication that something, that narratively something is on the other side, because even almost dying can give you PTSD. So what your brain would actually go through when you actually die is probably even more traumatic.
Yeah, very cool.
And now, when we talk about resurrection, remember, we are in the world of comics here.
Yeah.
And the whole thing is only Uncle Ben is allowed to stay dead.
Yeah. Well, for a while there were there were a couple others.
There was
for a while.
There was 3 in Marvel. Uncle Ben, Bucky Barnes, and Gwen Stacy. Now they've resurrected both Bucky Barnes and Gwen Stacy in last 10 years. So
arguably not for Gwen Stacy, because it's an alternate universe Gwen Stacy, and there have been there is at least one alternate universe Uncle Ben where he was bitten by the spider instead of Parker.
Yeah. Okay. And I suppose I don't know if there's any alternate timelines in DC where Bruce Wayne's parents ever got resurrected or not. I'm not aware of it, but that might be another one.
But see, the one I knew was, the way I heard it was Uncle Ben, Bucky Barnes, Jason Todd.
Sorry, I just read what Tusk put in the chat.
Yeah.
Tusk, you win the internet today. That's fucking beautiful.
Yeah. So, anyways,
sorry.
it gets attacked. The helicarrier gets attacked. We have this team bonding moment where Captain America and
I'll go back in 2 minutes, Rick.
Yeah,
sorry.
where Captain.
I've got to stop laughing at what Tusk is putting in the chat.
where we have Captain America and Iron Man resolving their issues by fixing the helicarrier together. And Thor goes to capture Loki, but it doesn't work out. And Loki gets a great, there's a great line from Loki to Thor, where he's like, you got to stop falling for that. Right? He does the illusionary duplicate thing. But actually, that's backtracking, because, that's the scene where Coulson dies. And we have the scene between, Clint and Natasha, where Clint's like, you don't know what it's like to have yourself scooped out of you and replaced with something else. And Natasha looks back at him and says, yes, I do. And Clint's like, how many S.H.I.E.L.D. agents did I? And Natasha's, don't ask. It'll hurt you. You it wasn't you, it was Loki. And so, like, it's another really, like, it's another really dark moment for, especially for a franchise like the MCU that's more known about being happy-go-lucky than anything else. The MCU is the MCU, the Avengers is the fun franchise of the fun mega franchise of the MCU, and here we're having, Bruce Banner talking about a suicide attempt, and Natasha and Clint further bonding over having been brainwashed and forced to be, and forced to be assassins.
It doesn't really get much darker, does it?
Yeah. And I mean, coming from, I'd say, for people who have like come out of like cults and cult-like mindsets, arguably the scene between Natasha and Clint hits a little harder than the scene with Banner.
Absolutely.
But the team bands together. We have the scene with Thor in the field, where you have like a brief moment with Thor looking at his hammer, thinking about is he really worthy? Because he, like, his mini arc is basically dealing with the fact that when when Asgardians come to Earth, shit gets wrecked. And is he really a hero, or is he just destruction?
Interesting.
But now they will, and they're, one of the quote unquote problems that people have with the Avengers, as what Bruce Banner was controlling it all along. That's a bullshit, out of the nowhere plot twist. Actually, if you're paying attention while you're watching it, it's foreshadowed actually rather well throughout the movie. Because first, with the in the scene with Natasha, Bruce does, Bruce briefly acts like he's about to lose it, and he doesn't. And then we have the scene where he wakes up in the pile of rubble, in the factory, and the guard, security guards there's like, yeah, you were I saw you fall out of the sky. And he says that he was conscious, and that he had aimed himself at the empty building. He reveals to Banner that the Hulk had aimed himself at the empty building to avoid civilian casualties. Then we get another, bit of, Marvel MCU humor, where the security guard, asks the Hulk, "Are you an alien?" Or asks Banner, "Are you an alien?" Banner's like, "No." He's like, "Son, you have a condition."
Yeah, sorry, I'm back now, but Tusk broke me with that comment earlier.
Yeah.
So that was
That's fascinating.
Yeah.
You get to the thing, obviously, they figure out Loki is using Tony Stark's Stark Tower.
Yeah.
For was where
I love how Tony comes to the realization. You know, Loki's a full tilt diva. He'd want a ticker tape parade. He want a monument to. He'd want a monument in the heavens bearing his son of a bitch.
Yeah. And that whole, he knows exactly. It's like, oh god, he's kind of like me, hitting away. And obviously, this leads possibly one of the most iconic scenes in this movie is the conversation where Stark confronts Loki. Iron Man confronts Loki in Stark Tower.
Threatens Loki.
Yeah.
No.
Not stalling, threatening. I love how you should have left your armor on for that. And everything that few minutes of that scene is there's so many great lines in that. And I mean, obviously, the one everyone sort of remembers is Loki saying, "I have an army. We have a Hulk."
Yeah.
But one of my favorite bits of that is the end of that, where Stark saying, "Look, listen, there is no version of this where you come out winning. There is no throne. There's no. It's just because if we can't protect the Earth, you guarantee we will avenge it."
Yeah.
And then of course you get again the humor, again of him Loki trying to use his staff to turn Tony, and then keeps pointing on his
arc reactor.
And he's like, "Oh well, so this is that's a common problem. Men of a certain age. Can't get it up no more. It's like,
and he lists through the all the Avengers, all the other Avengers except for himself, and you managed to piss them all off.
I'm trying to remember the way he says this. He says so your brother, the demigod, super soldier who's a living legend who kind of lives up to the legend. A man with breathtaking anger issues,
and two super secret agents,
two super assassins. You've managed to piss all of them off. That was my plan. Is not a good plan.
Yeah, and
there's so many great lines in that.
And then it ends with him, jumping out of the window and activating his, the Mark 7 armor.
Yeah,
and he hovers in front of the window and says to Loki, "And there's one more that you pissed off. His name was Phil."
Yeah.
Letting him know that it's personal with Tony now too.
Yeah. Yeah, because of what he did, using Coulson. And it will obviously, I might be jumping ahead here, but it does obviously get mentioned because Coulson said he had these Captain America trading cards, which were his prized possession, and it turns out Fury had kind of manipulated that thing a little bit at one point as well, and it was like, hey, I said what I needed to say to get them guys to start working together.
Yeah, and that those scenes back to back really bring the conflict that the actual plot is about, because the plot isn't really about Loki and the Tesseract and the Chitauri. It's about, can the Avengers assemble?
Yeah.
And
which I will actually say, for those who don't know, in the UK, I don't know about internationally, the name of the film is Avengers Assemble in the UK. I think it was just called Avengers in
it's just called the Avengers in the US.
It was actually the actual name of the film is Avengers Assemble. was how it was released in the UK.
Which I'm guessing did so it wouldn't be confused with a different franchise that's particularly British.
We mentioned this on Sam's stream earlier. The whole Diana Rigg, Patrick Whitney, the old spy series, The Avengers, which is nothing to do with this.
Yeah.
No, but can I just say, I thought it was fascinating that it's cost $60 million to film, and it made $56 million at the box office.
Yeah.
It lost for $4 million.
What, this movie or?
No, the 1998 one. The Spy.
Yeah, that was bad. That was like Ray Fiennes as an actor, like Uma Thurman as an actress, and Sean Connery was an icon, but that was a bad movie.
Yeah. But and you know, so the team is all together except for Banner. And you know, the Chitauri are starting to come out of the portal, and we get this last little great bit of humor of, you know, Bruce Banner just putting up on a little scooter.
Yeah. But again, and then this is again is a quite, I think, a very standout moment in this film. That I hate to use the word iconic, but it is a great visual of where, you know, eventually, I mean, I love the whole thing with Stark saying, "Tell him to suit up now. He's here." And the whole thing of Dr. Banner, this might be a really good time for you to get angry. That's my secret, Captain. I'm always angry.
Yeah, well, and you know, a lot of people had a problem with that at the begin, you know, when it first came out, because they thought it was a stupid twist that came out of nowhere. But if you pay attention to the movie, that's actually foreshadowed, like really, really subtly. Because, you know, in the scene with Natasha where he pretends to lose it, you know,
it's that it's kind of that he's had control of the Hulk for at least a while now. And it's I mean, obviously the thing with Loki tipped the balance originally. But,
and when he you know, fell out of the helicarrier, the security guard says that the Hulk was conscious and the Hulk had aimed for an empty building. So it is there if you're paying attention.
Yeah.
And then, of course, we have the, like, 30-minute fireworks finale that's just basically the movie doing a touchdown dance.
Yeah. I mean, and it starts very much with that scene that we were just talking about, when they bring down the big Chitauri, ship or whatever. And
the space whale.
Space whale. And then you had that big scene with them all stood in a circle.
Yeah.
And, you know, and the music, which is if I would just say, if there's a couple of YouTube videos out, so how the Avengers theme goes with everything, which is worth watching. And you get the whole thing of they're there. Then at that point, it's like they are a team.
Yeah,
and it's obviously like it's pretty much was put there. Captain America, if anyone, is the leader of the team.
Yeah,
when Tony's like, Captain, call it.
Yeah,
and he gives the instructions out, and I do like the little because again the little one-line humorous bit with Hawkeye when he said, "Hey, Legolas, clinch up," you know.
Yeah.
So he's giving up all the instructions, like,
or
Stark, you take the perimeter. Clint, you go up there. Hulk, Thor, go up there, and Hulk smash.
And he just grins.
It's like, yeah.
And it's during this this end of the movie that we do get a little bit of a payoff that was to some of the conflict in earlier in the movie, though arguably we get a better payoff at the end of Endgame, where Stark and Rogers are facing, are having their little dick measuring contest on the helicarrier, and Stark tells Rogers the only thing special about the only thing special about you came out of a bottle. And Rogers tells him, he's not gonna the one to make the
sacrifice.
Yeah, the sacrifice play. And we get a minor payoff to that where Captain America just takes control of the situation by getting the cops to start evacuating the civilians and setting up a perimeter.
And that's another good little bit in this thing where he's giving the cops orders, and who the fuck are you, kind of thing. And then there's several Chitauri come in, Cap kicks their ass, and he's like, and they're like, yeah, do what the man says.
Yeah. And then Iron Man has his sacrifice moment in the with the nuclear missile.
So launched the and it's kind of obviously comes to a certain thing of each Avenger plays a little bit of a part in the end of this thing with them closing the portal or whatever. But the whole thing is that the Security Council decides to nuke New York City. That's the call they make. So
I acknowledge that the council has made a decision, but given it is a stupid ass decision, I've elected to ignore it.
Yeah. And then, of course, at the same time this is going on, you get Loki gets taken out of the equation.
Yeah.
Where he has a run-in with the Hulk.
Yeah.
And, of course, the iconic line of this, all the atheists love. I am a god, you dull creature, and I will not be bang, 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 bang. Puny gods.
And, well, and the thing is, this is the bit where we kind of extend past the Avengers, because we can't talk about the Avengers in a vacuum as much as we want to, because the Avengers is really the foundation of the MCU as we know it.
Yeah.
And the rest of the MCU has some great callbacks to things that happened in the Avengers. Like, for instance, in Thor Ragnarok, when the Hulk comes out in the gladiatorial arena, the look on Loki's face as you get that Vietnam flashback.
It's like, yeah. And I gotta say, the best meme. I saw a great meme of this a couple of years ago with someone had done some, and someone had done some pictures where they had doctored the images of that scene with the Hulk looking very suspiciously looking like Aaron Ra. And somebody saying, I can't do it as well as you, Ring. You can't hurt me. I'm a doctor. Bang, bang, but Aaron, puny doctor.
And the real, and arguably, and I'm fine mentioning it now because we're not talking about Endgame this year. But the arguably the bigger payoff to the the only thing special about you came from a bottle and the you're not the one to make the sacrifice play comes at the end of Endgame, where you have Captain America wielding Mjolnir, and you have Tony Stark giving up his life to save, the universe.
Yeah.
But we also,
But you had this moment in this where Stark, and he is willing. He makes this play where he is willing to make the sacrifice and almost does die. And it's more just not just to fact that we've won the battle here, but he's does this thing to send a message to the Chitauri and whoever controls them that, hey, fuck with us, this is what awaits you, kind of thing.
And while he is through the portal, he has almost like a Lovecraftian experience where he realizes how vast and hostile the universe is, which leads directly into the, which actually leads directly into not only the events of Iron Man 3, but the events of the subsequent Avengers movies.
Yeah.
But those are discussions for another day.
Yeah, exactly. And so as this towards the end of the movie, Loki sort of kind of comes to and then just sees the Avengers standing over him.
Yeah, where you have that. Yeah, where you have that shot where yes, they're a team. That final. The Avengers are a team,
and it's the kind of whole Loki's kind of resigned to his fate at this point. It's like, oh, I've lost.
And of course, we get the greatest Stan Lee cameo in Phase 1.
Superheroes in New York.
Yeah.
Give me a break.
Yeah.
Which is whenever we do Guardians 2, I'll have to say so. I mean, I know we're doing the first Guardian, but if we get to do Guardians 2, I'll say something about Stan Lee because something was revealed, wasn't it? But it's and then obviously, so you got to the point that they're a team, and Fury's kind of at the end is like he kind of expresses, hey, if we need them, they'll return. And of course you have a mid-credit scene where the other confers with his master about the failed attack on Earth and warns him that to take on the humans is courting death. And then he turns around and you get the first glimpse of Thanos.
And that's one of the great things about the Marvel movies is though they're largely made for audiences who don't read comic books, they slip in little things like that.
Which is great because death, and I'll just say this, for those who don't get that reference, within the comic books, there was a long-standing storyline that Thanos was the character Death is in this, and Death is a female character.
Yeah,
that Thanos is in love with, and so to court Death.
Yeah,
is you see the smile on. Although the MCU never goes there with that particular thing, but it's a great thing for, you know, if you're. So it's a great wink to the comic book fans, but for the casual fan who doesn't maybe get it, it's just okay. You see this being that's somewhere at the back of this, who's going to become a villain later, who is like relishing the challenge of this.
Yeah.
And then obviously you have a little the little ends credit scene of them all eating eating fast food at the end, which is quite
eating at the shawarma place.
Mm.
So we haven't had any movies that have been like there haven't been any MCU, you know, any Marvel movies that have come out that were started after his death.
No. He filmed a number of cameos before his death for films that came out. Now I almost hope I really hope they don't CGI him in any
the best suggestions I've seen are, one, just don't do Stan Lee cameos anymore. The other one is replace the Stan Lee cameos with Deadpool cameos.
I would love that.
Yeah,
I would love the Deadpool cameos. They're because obviously the Stan Lee cameo thing did not even start with the MCU.
Yeah.
He'd done cameos in like a number of TV things, and then obviously the first big Spider-Man movie kind of established the Stan Lee cameo thing, and
and actually, fun fact, Stan Lee had a cameo in Heroes.
Yeah.
Where he's the bus driver when Hiro Nakamura gets on the bus, and he tells something to Hiro Nakamura and gets him gives him the motivation he needs to get back to trying to stop the apocalypse.
I don't mind the idea, have good little cameos and winks to the fans in these films and things. I don't want to see CGI Stan Lee, or if they are going to go down that way, do it in a way where it's a wrap up of the Stan Lee thing.
So Stan Lee died right before Captain Marvel was released into in theaters,
and Far From Home as well.
Yeah. So Far From Home and Captain Marvel were basically in post-production when Stan Lee died.
They were kind of in the can. They were in the can already.
Yeah.
I will say, I love this. I'm going to say, as far as great cameos in superhero movies, now I got to be honest, one of the most disappointing superhero movies to me recently has been Wonder Woman 1984.
Yeah.
But there's a fucking great cameo in that.
Yeah. Well, I think because Junk Shop's portion of the 24-hour stream is coming up soon, or is coming up in a minute. So might as well do final.
I thought the 24-hour stream was next. Oh, is this something I don't know about?
It's for Manda.
Oh, is that start? I thought that was next week.
Yeah, I think it's this week.
Okay. Let me just okay.
Well, it's either this week or next week, but we're getting around finishing time.
24-hour movie marathon is next week, according to what I can see. But yeah.
So, final thoughts.
This is, like I said, just great, fun movie. Brings together what you'd seen in the MCU so far, and just it was a culmination of the first stage. Obviously, was this? It was where you, but as we've said, even if you had no knowledge of any of the previous Marvel movies or any knowledge of comic books, this is just a good fun movie. Would be my if we lost Sammy, but yeah, that would be my take on this. It was just Avengers is just a great fun film, and that would be my takeaway from that. Okay. Neverend says Junk Shop is on at noon, but move. Okay, so Junk Shop will be on in a bit, but not for that thing. Okay.
But
we seem to have lost Sammy as well, but
so, and the Avengers, it is like essentially all the Phase 1 franchises coming together into a Voltron. And the question is, can the franchises come together and make something stronger than the sum of their parts? I think they did.
Yes.
And not only is it the fun, like it did what it set out to do. It was a fun world building movie that actually got surprisingly dark in places that I wasn't expecting. So
yeah.
Though I think if we dip into like the Phase 1 movies, we're probably just going to be talking about those as a each franchise as a whole, because Phase 1 doesn't really have much to offer, discussion wise.
In a way, I know we originally were going to do Black Panther this one, but in a way, I think this is certain way. This was a good point to actually start on, was Avengers.
Yeah,
because I think in a certain way, this is where you really. It's a great because it's a great introduction to the MCU for anyone as well.
Oh yeah.
Like
if you don't want to bother with Phase 1, and you want to get in, and want to get started watching, the MCU, the Avengers is the best starting off point.
Yeah.
Yeah. Noodle's just kind of tired.
Yeah.
Yeah. They just need some rest.
Yeah. Noodle. Yeah. Hence why Asterix is on hiatus until Noodle's up to it. So.
Yeah.
So.
And with that, Schilling.
I'm trying to think what I've got. Hopefully Asterix will be back next week. We hope. I think I'm on Dave's stream on Tuesday for Critical Questions, which Dave hinted might have a little bit of a Star Wars theme.
Oh, well, that makes sense, seeing as how May the 4th is.
May the 4th be with you. And
though I'm sorry, I think I saw a recent meme that I think makes a good point for disbanding May the 4th.
Okay.
So instead of May the 4th and Revenge of the 5th, we should have This is the May.
Yeah. And just so you know, The reason Ring's not doing Star Wars this month is we did that last year. So anyone wants to go and check those streams out. The Star Wars month was done last year.
And somewhere in there is the only time I've actually had a troll in my chat.
Who may have been known as maybe called Darth.
Yeah.
Also,
though I will say, sometime I am probably gonna try and get Manda on to talk Mandalorian season 2.
Yeah,
but
absolutely.
That doesn't even have a date involved. What does is, as always, Saturday we have Secular D&D, where the party is working on getting on freeing a group of gladiators from the dungeons under the Colosseum. And of course, next week, everyone being up to it permitting, we'll be talking about Black Panther, because I just kind of moved it back. If we run into issues, it'll be Guardians of the Galaxy.
Okay, yep. Either way, that's given me an excuse to watch both Black Panther and Guardians in next week. So that's always a good. Which, to be honest, it's not like I need an excuse to sit down and watch a Marvel movie.
Yeah, you don't really.
Yeah, and I've got to say, I know there's certain people who are like, not the. I love the MCU. I absolutely love it, and I'm really kind of glad. I'm really pumped to be doing this month on these, because I mean, I do also hope someday DC figure out with their universe what they can get it right. But Marvel have obviously have hit on a formula that works for them.
And that's the thing, is Marvel are basically the only super franchise that have made it work, with the with the exception of what's being built off the 2014 Godzilla.
Yeah. But
and that is in large part thanks to the Avengers.
Yeah, I mean there's been talk, because obviously we know, the DC has its own extended universe, which has had its ups and downs, and hopefully they will hit on the thing that works. Hopefully they will hit on the thing that works for them eventually. I don't think they've quite figured it out yet, but yes, thank you, Ring. Great thing. Great t-shirt.
Yeah. You got to thank Noodle for that. Noodle got me this shirt and the other shirt I'll be wearing this month.
Believe it or not, and there is a Marvel tie-in in a certain way here. There is talk of a Hasbro cinematic universe, which will include Transformers, G.I. Joe, Gem, and all sorts of it. Yeah. Which, ironically, Marvel wrote a lot of the comics in the 80s for Hasbro and that. But Marvel has hit on the formula that works. Now, is there an argument that formula may be getting a little stale? Possibly. But they have hit on something that is working at the moment. And I'll be very interested to see where the MCU goes from here, this point.
Arguably, it's not quite, because they are, especially as we will discuss in the next upcoming weeks. Marvel has done things to tweak the formula for the Marvel movie, and it's paid dividends.
Yeah.
And with that, we'll move to taglines.
Okay, I don't do taglines, but I will leave you this week with a fun fact. Matt Powell has a giant inflatable banana in his backyard, which he calls Dr. Peel.
And I'll try out a new tagline. The purpose of a storyteller is not to tell you how to think, but to give you questions to think on. Too often we forget that. From The Way of Kings by Brandon Sanderson. And Sammy, you have a tagline for the end of us?
Hero.
That's good enough. Salute.